How did my fiancé's reaction to my natural hair texture reveal his true racist beliefs? My fiancé said out loud at dinner with my parents that he hopes our kids take after his side when it comes to hair, just like that. Like he was talking about eye color or height, not about me, not about the hair I was sitting right there wearing. I need to back up first, because if I just tell you that one line, you'll think it came out of nowhere, and it didn't. Nothing ever really does. That's the part I keep learning the hard way. Weston and I met at a mutual friend's birthday thing almost 5 years ago. He was funny in that dry, understated way, the kind you have to actually be listening for or you miss it. He remembered small things, my coffee order, that I hated cilantro, that I got anxious on elevators after getting stuck in one as a kid. For the first year or two, I would have told you he was the most thoughtful person I'd ever dated. My friends liked him. My mom liked him, cautiously, the way she likes everyone at first. Here's the thing about my hair. I have thick, tight curls, 4B if you know the hair typing system, the kind that shrinks up when it's humid and takes real planning to detangle. I didn't always love it. My mom relaxed it when I was 7 because she genuinely thought it would be easier for me, easier to fit in at the mostly white school we just transferred to. I spent most of my 20s straightening it, relaxing it, or hiding it under wigs because I didn't actually know my natural texture or how to care for it. It wasn't until I was 26, going through a rough patch after a breakup, that I did the big chop and started actually learning my hair. It took almost 2 years to trust it, to like looking in the mirror. I say all this because it matters for what happened next. Weston and I got engaged 14 months ago. He proposed on a hike, which was very him, low-key, no crowd, no big production. I said yes before he even finished the sentence. My parents cried, his parents cried. Everybody was thrilled. We started planning almost immediately because his sister was pregnant, and we wanted her to be able to be at the wedding before the baby came. Looking back now, there were signs. Little ones. I explained away because that's what you do when you love someone and you don't want the story of your relationship to have a crack in it. The first one I can point to now was maybe 8 months into dating. We were taking engagement. Well, not engagement then, just a couple photos for his LinkedIn actually. He wanted a professional headshot with me in the background for some work event thing. Don't ask. It had rained that morning and my hair had done what my hair does in the rain. Gone big, gone full, gone completely itself. He kept angling the camera differently, kept saying, let's try this side, or can you kind of tuck it back a little? And eventually the photographer, bless her, just said, I think it looks beautiful like this. And he got this tight little smile and said, yeah, no, you're right, in a voice that told me he did not think I was right. I didn't say anything. I told myself he was just particular about photos. Some people are. Then there was the time I straightened my hair for a job interview. The only time in probably 3 years I'd put heat on it, and he told me I looked so professional. I remember feeling a small flicker of something and swatting it away like a bug. Professional. Like the rest of the time, I looked unprofessional. I asked him once, kind of joking, kind of not, do you like my hair curly or straight better? And he said, I don't know, I just think you have such a pretty face. It'd be nice to see it more. Which is one of those answers that sounds like a compliment until you actually turn it over in your hands and look at the bottom of it. None of that, on its own, is a crime. People have preferences. I told myself that constantly. Everyone's got a type, right? And hair is just hair. Then came the dinner. It was a normal Sunday. The kind of Sunday my family does every few weeks. My mom cooking way too much food. My dad topping off wine glasses that were already full because that's just a thing he does. Some kind of hosting reflex. We were going over wedding stuff at the table, the seating chart, whether my Uncle Ray's new girlfriend, the one literally nobody in the family had met yet, was getting a +1. Regular chaos. Regular family stuff. And then, completely out of nowhere, in the middle of a conversation about centerpieces, Weston goes, yeah, honestly, I hope our kids take after my side when it comes to hair. I actually laughed for a second because I thought maybe I misheard him, or he was setting up some kind of joke I wasn't getting yet. But nobody laughed with me. My dad's fork stopped literally halfway to his mouth, hovering there. My mom went quiet in that specific way she goes quiet, which isn't actually quiet at all. It's her doing math in her head, deciding whether to say something or let it play out. Excuse me? I said. He must have heard something in my voice because he backpedaled, but not in the direction I needed him to. I just mean, you know, it'd be easier for them. Less maintenance, my hair. The hair I had spent 2 years learning to actually love after a childhood of being told it needed to be fixed. I said something like, you do know our kids would probably have my hair texture regardless of anything you hope for, right? That's not really how genetics works, and also, what's wrong with my hair texture? He did the thing men do when they realize they've said something and the room has shifted, which is act baffled that the room has shifted. Whoa, I didn't mean anything by it. Don't make this a whole thing. Don't make this a whole thing. In front of my parents. At their table. About my own hair. I let it go for the rest of dinner because I didn't want to blow up the whole evening in front of my mom and dad. And also, if I'm honest, because some small cowardly part of me was hoping if I didn't poke at it, it would turn out to be nothing. That's a thing I did a lot in that relationship, I realize now. Hoped things into being smaller than they were. My dad walked me to my car afterward. He didn't say much, which is unusual for him. He's a talker. He just hugged me a little longer than he normally does, patted my back twice, and said, drive safe, sweetheart. That was it. But something about the way he held onto that hug told me he'd heard exactly what I heard. And he wasn't going to be the one to say it out loud, because it wasn't his to say. That was the moment it actually landed for me. Not at the table. In the parking lot, alone, with my car keys already in my hand. I didn't sleep that night. I lay there running back through years of small moments I'd filed under preference, and started refiling them under something else entirely. The photo thing? The so professional thing? How he'd go quiet whenever a stranger asked to touch my hair, like he was embarrassed on my behalf instead of protective of me. How once, at his cousin's wedding, an aunt of his said something about my hair being so wild and fun, in a tone that was absolutely not a compliment. And he'd let laughed along with her instead of saying a single word in my defense. I thought about how his family's photo wall, generations of them, was just wall-to-wall straight hair, and how I'd never once heard him or anyone in his family talk about a black person, a curly-haired person, a person who looked anything like me, without some kind of qualifier attached. He's actually really well-spoken. I used to let those slide off me because I told myself they weren't talking about me. I was different, I was the exception, his family loved me. God, the exception. What an exhausting, insulting place to live. 2 days later, I confronted him. I'd rehearsed it about 4 different ways in my head, and none of them came out the way I planned. They never do. I asked him straight up why he said what he said at dinner, and whether he'd ever really loved my hair or just tolerated it. He got defensive immediately, which honestly told me everything before he said a single word. You're twisting what I said. You're making this into a whole race thing when I was just talking about hair texture. He actually said that sentence out loud, like hair texture floats around somewhere outside of history, outside of culture, outside of every single thing that's ever been said about black women's hair in this country. Like it's just a neutral little fact with no weight attached to it. I asked him point blank, would you have said that about literally any other feature of mine? Would you sit at my parents' table and say you hope our kids get a different nose than mine, or different skin? Say it. Say those words out loud and tell me how they sound. He didn't say anything for a long time. And then he said quietly, almost like it slipped out before he could stop it, I mean, it would just be simpler. Simpler. Not even about the kids anymore, really. About me. About making all of it simpler, smaller, more manageable, more palatable. I finally understood that this wasn't a comment about hair care routines. This was him telling me in the gentlest, most deniable way he could manage that a part of me, a part that is deeply tied to my blackness, was something he'd been quietly hoping to edit out of our future. There's one more thing I haven't told anyone outside my therapist, and I think about it more than almost anything else from that whole relationship. About 2 weeks after I called off the wedding, while I was still packing up my things from his apartment, I found an old group chat still open on his laptop, the screen just sitting there, because he'd stepped out to grab boxes from his car. I know, you're not supposed to read other people's messages, and normally I wouldn't have, but my name was right there on the screen in a preview notification, and something in me just needed to know. It was a chat with his groomsmen from probably 8 or 9 months earlier, right after we'd gotten engaged. Someone had posted a picture from a night out, and one of his friends had made some comment. I won't even repeat exactly what it said because it doesn't deserve to be repeated, but the gist of it was a joke about my hair, and whether I'd be toning it down for the wedding photos. And Weston's response, the one that stuck with me, the one I can still picture on that screen, was a laughing emoji and the words, "We'll see, working on it," like I was a renovation project. Like the parts of me that are black, the parts that were never up for negotiation in the first place, were something he'd quietly signed himself up to manage down to a more comfortable size before he presented me to the world as his wife. I went home that night, if you can call it that. It was still technically my apartment, even though most of my stuff had already migrated to his place for the wedding planning. I sat on my old bed and called my mom. I couldn't even get the whole story out before I was crying so hard I was hiccuping. The kind of crying you do maybe 3 times in your whole adult life. My mom didn't say I told you so, which I will always love her for, because there had been little things over the years she'd mentioned gently, comments Weston's mother had made, a joke his uncle told at Thanksgiving that nobody but us seemed to find not funny. She just listened. And then she told me something I didn't know. She told me that 30-some years ago, before she married my dad, she'd almost married someone else. My dad's older brother, actually, my uncle, the one we don't really talk about at family things anymore. She said he used to make comments just like that, about her hair, about how their kids should come out looking a certain way, and she'd talked herself out of the wrongness of it for 2 years before something in her finally woke up and she left. She said watching me go through this felt like watching her own younger self, and she was not going to let me talk myself into staying the way she almost did. I called off the wedding 9 days before the invitations were supposed to go to the printer. 9 days. I still think about how close we came to mailing 400 cardstock invitations announcing a future I was not actually going to have. Telling people was its own special kind of hell. My venue coordinator waived half our deposit even though she didn't have to. My bridesmaids were devastated, then quietly furious on my behalf once I explained why. One friend admitted she'd always found something off about how Weston called gatherings at my parents' house chaotic, a word he never used for his own family's much louder. Holidays. His family's reaction was its own chapter. His mother called me crying, said I was overreacting, said Weston would never think that way. His dad, to his credit, called a week later and apologized, said he'd heard Weston make comments over the years and never addressed them. His sister, pregnant at the time, sent me a long message saying she hoped her own kid never grew up hearing that kind of thing said so casually at a family table. My work best friend, who is also black, just nodded slowly when I told her the dinner story, like she'd clocked something in Weston the 2 times she'd met him, and had been waiting to see if I'd catch up to what she already suspected. She didn't say I told you so either. Nobody who really loved me said that. Weston texted for weeks, first angry, then confused, then eventually something that looked a lot like grief, or maybe just the loss of convenience. It's hard to tell those apart from the outside sometimes. About 6 months after everything, he reached out again, said he'd been doing some reflecting, asked if we could get coffee and talk things through properly. Some small, tired, hopeful part of me almost said yes, because 5 years is a long time and grief doesn't care about timelines. Then his new girlfriend's Instagram showed up in my feed. One of those cruel little algorithm suggestions that shows up right when you least need it to. Blonde, straight hair, obviously ironed within an inch of its life in every single photo. I sat there staring at my phone for a solid minute and waited to feel something like jealousy or heartbreak. And instead I just felt this odd, clean kind of relief, like putting down a bag you didn't realize had been cutting into your shoulder the whole time you were carrying it. I didn't text him back. I still haven't. It's been almost a year now. I moved back closer to my parents for a while, which honestly ended up being one of the better accidents of this whole mess. Getting Sunday dinners back, getting my dad's overly generous wine pours back, getting my mom's specific brand of quiet support back. I started therapy, which I probably should have started years before any of this. And my therapist and I have spent a lot of time on the difference between being loved and being tolerated, and how much of my life I spent not knowing there was a difference at all. I look back at engagement photos sometimes, the ones where my hair is pulled back tight, sleek, nothing like how it actually grows out of my head. And I don't feel sad exactly. I feel a strange kind of distance, like I'm looking at a stranger who was trying very hard to be someone else's idea of easy. I don't blame her. She didn't know yet what she was worth. I do now. My hair is bigger now than I ever let it be when I was with him. I stopped angling myself in photos. I stopped apologizing for how much space it takes up in a doorway or a car headrest or a photo frame. My dad tells me sometimes, out of nowhere over dinner, that I look just like his mother did at my age, my grandmother, who I never got to meet, who apparently wore her hair exactly like this, big and unbothered and completely hers. Every single time he says it, it feels like getting something back that I didn't even fully know I'd lost. I'm not going to sit here and tell you I have some neat, tidy lesson wrapped up with a bow for you. What I have instead is this. Pay attention to the small comments. Pay attention to the flinch, the angled camera, the so professional, the silence when someone else says something ugly. They add up to something. They were always adding up to something. I just didn't want to do the math. I'll take the 400 invitations we never sent over one more year of shrinking myself down to fit someone else's idea of simpler. People ask me sometimes, gently, like they're worried the question will crack me open, whether I regret staying with him as long as I did. 5 years is not a small number. I used to answer fast and defensive. No, of course not. I learned a lot. Now I answer slower. I don't regret the years, because they made me who I am sitting here today. But I do grieve the version of me who spent so long being grateful for basic decency, who mistook being chosen for being valued. My therapist has this phrase she uses a lot, proximity to whiteness as a condition of love. And the first time she said it, I actually flinched, because it named something I hadn't let myself name. It wasn't that Weston hated me. I don't even think he'd recognize himself in the word racist if you sat him down and made him watch this whole story back. That's almost the scarier part. It was quiet, deniable, wrapped in the language of preference and practicality, easy to laugh off, easy to explain away, but love that keeps needing you to be a smaller, straighter version of yourself in order to feel comfortable was never really love in the first place. My little cousin, who's 14 and has curls even tighter than mine, asked me a few weeks ago why I called off the wedding. I told her the truth, in a version she could hold on to, that someone she loves might make her feel like parts of herself need fixing, need managing, and that the correct response is not to shrink, it's to leave. She nodded, then asked if she could touch my hair. And I said yes, because that's different. That's curiosity, that's family. I think about my grandmother a lot these days, the one I never met, the one my dad says I favor more the bigger I let my hair grow. I like to imagine her seeing me now, unbothered, unedited, standing in doorways without ducking my head to make my hair fit through them.